Welcome to the podcast, where we teach you how to create marketing that pops. Get ready for refreshing conversations with industry experts, trendsetters, and creative minds that'll leave you bubbling with inspiration. Get ready to turn up the volume on your business. Let's get popping. Okay, welcome back to Marketing That Pops. I'm Olivia
And I'm Michelle.
And today we have Grace Clemens, founder of SGC Marketing Co. Welcome to the pod, Grace.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, yes, and we're excited to have you here. So we would love if you would just give everybody just a little bit of background and elevator pitch about you.
Absolutely. So I'm Grace Clemens, CEO and founder of SGC Marketing. I've been a digital marketer for over 14 years. I studied at UMass Boston, but finished my degree at Queen Mary University of London, did my thesis on consumer psychology and digital marketing, and hit the ground running. I started in B2B marketing at a small agency in London and built their entire social media from the ground up, including an SEO blog, focused blog, working with large FMCG brands such as Carling, Cadbury, Oxfam, Royal Caribbean, you name it. So I'm thrilled to see that the CEO is still using the same strategy and policies that I implemented so many moons ago. That was over a decade now. So glad to see that they're still seeing the value in social, even more so. And then I did a little bit of freelance on the side, helping some small travel agencies get more bookings through social. And then I went into fashion marketing, where I worked with SilkFred for a little over 4 years and was part of 5 times growth in that time, doubling email revenue from 1 million to 2 million in the first year, doubling subscribers. I was the head of copywriting. I've managed paid ads and organic strategy and a lot of campaign direction. I also founded the corporate responsibility department, raising over £20,000 for numerous local charities at low cost to the company. And then I went freelance in 2020 when the entire world went remote. So I was quite lucky. And I was picked up right off the bat by Green Rock Agency based in London with the sole purpose to focus on XPRIZE. And that is where I led the marketing strategy for the 100 million carbon removal prize, which was one of the largest incentivized prizes in history. So came on board, did an audit for them, re-strategized. We saw green KPIs across the board after 6 to 8 months. And that's when Elon Musk came on board and donated that money. So I was really lucky and had the fortunate privilege to work on some really, really groundbreaking social incentivized prizes there. Since then, I've been doing strategy and data analysis and communications and growth for, e-commerce brands, nonprofits, hospitality companies. It really isn't an industry that I haven't touched. So that's where it leads me today, where I founded SGC Marketing about a year and a half ago, and I specialize in digital marketing audits. So if you're working with my agency, you have the choice to then take those findings and implement it in-house, or SGC Marketing will handpick a team to implement that strategy. So that's in a nutshell. I was also working at a B2B company as well called Process Driven for a while. So I could keep going, but I'll leave it there.
Awesome. A lot of experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're excited to dive into it.
Yeah.
So, Grace, I was telling you that on every episode, we like to start with a myth. And so today we're going to switch it up just a little bit. But on every episode, we do, bust a myth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to let you pick what is kind of your best misconception about marketing. So I'm going to read a few. Good products sell themselves, so you don't necessarily need marketing. Marketing is just ads and social media. If it didn't go viral, it didn't work. You can measure everything in marketing. And then lastly, if you post it, they will come. What's kind of like your pick that you feel like is your biggest misconception out of those?
I will opt for going viral means it didn't work. I was hoping you guys would bring that one to the table. The biggest myth. I even had somebody comment on one of my marketing TikTok posts and say, well, if you're so good at marketing, why haven't you gone viral? And I thought, Tell me you don't understand marketing without telling me you don't understand
E-
marketing.
Exactly.
So, I mean, going viral is obviously a plus, a great, great in terms of reach. But if you're going to go viral, I want to ask you, is it even clear who your brand is? Because a lot of videos that go
Hmm.
viral, that's it. They just go viral. It doesn't mean that you're going to get conversions. It doesn't mean that you're going to get website traffic. So if your objective is to go viral, I would really stop and think
Hmm.
about, is it going to be in the best interest of your company? Is it going to make a lasting impact? Whereas we're seeing a lot of companies really shift their focus onto micro influencers, right? Because there's higher engagement there. There's more engaged audience. So this myth, and you ask any social media digital marketer, they will agree with me on this, that going viral just isn't a solid KPI to base success on overall.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's not like you can plan that. It's one of those things where if it happens, great, but there's no guarantees. You just don't know like what's going to happen. And we've had cases where, whether it's like a free download or just a social media post, and we're like, why did that go viral? Why? What was
Hmm.
it? 'Cause we need to duplicate this, and you just don't know. It's like, I don't know, like why? Is it the music? Is it this? So it's really hard for customers to like expect that that's something that we just because we don't know.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And also, I would add is your brand even prepared to go viral if you do go viral?
Hmm.
Do you have the amount of hands on deck to fulfill orders? If orders come in at a mass speed, and again, that branding, if that video goes viral and it's not clear who created the ad, it's really a waste of virality. It's a waste of
Hmm.
marketing. So yeah.
Right.
No, that's very true. So, I mean, you touched on this a little bit about, launching your own agency, but what was that aha moment of, I think it's time for me to kind of like branch off in and do this on my own?
Yeah, so I was freelance for 3 years and I went freelance in 2020 originally, just because personally and professionally, my visa was up in the UK. I had to make a personal decision about what I was going to do with my life next. And I needed to go eat lunch,
Hmm.
right? So I thought I'll go freelance and see how that goes. And it went really well for those 3 years, but I ended up going full time with Process Driven for a little over a year, which Process Driven was specialized in small businesses processes and SOPs. So essentially, I got a full
Hmm.
course on how to use ClickUp, which was a massive win. And that's how I run my business now. And having that insight into what small businesses struggle with and everything. So eventually, when I did get laid off in 2020, in the end of 2024, I was back at that drawing board about, okay, I'm not getting any.
Hmm.
What do I really want to do with my life? And I know I'm in the right career, but I thought, well, now it was almost like a godsend having that role because it gave me everything that I needed to take my business to the
Hmm.
next step. And then also, there was a little bit of creativity light bulb moment where during those 3 years I couldn't really hone in on my pitch. I had about 9 services, right? I was selling it all as a marketer. Whereas
Hmm.
second time round when I sat down and I redid my website and I cut down 6 services, I narrowed it down to 3. I honed in on my niche, I honed into my audience. And it was once I niched it down that my aha moment came. I understood what my lead was going to be, what my pitch was going to be, and who I was going to be speaking to. So I think it was a combination of timing and luck, but also experience, and it all just came together.
Yeah. And when
Awesome.
things like that happen, like in the moment, it's really stressful and you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do?
Hmm.
And but it's always another door opening or a training or education for you to go on to that next step, right? And then, you can now look back and go, that was actually a really good thing. I didn't realize it at the time, but, it's all of those learnings that really make you so much better.
100%, 100%.
Stressful at the time, though. I know.
Part of the process.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you've described yourself as a creative marketing consultant with a flair for bold storytelling. Would you say that that's kind of like one of those services that you cut down for from the six to the three? Would you say that that's kind of like in that three services?
Yeah, for sure. So strategy, growth, and communications is really what I specialize in. And I feel like the storytelling really falls into communications, right? So I've
Mm-hmm.
never not had copywriting involved in any of my roles. And that's why I
Mm-hmm.
was eventually appointed head of copywriting at SilkFred because I was able to really speak to the audience and give the brand a voice. And that's a lot of what I really help clients do is who is your brand when they step off the screen in front of me? Hint, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably going to be similar to your customer, but that's where the way that brands are telling stories has changed so much. So it kind of falls. I feel like storytelling actually branches within strategy and communications, right? Because the two go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice. I think that's so many things that people don't think about is like your voice. Like, what does that look like? What is that personality behind the copy
Mm-hmm.
on the screen? And so when you're working with clients, how do you pull that out of them?
Yeah, so usually it depends on the project, it depends on the client. So for some, B2B and B2C clients that I can think of who needed their website copywriting done and really defining the brand guidelines and tone of voice, I will actually sit down and create a custom interview to have with that CEO and I will pull it out of them. I'll
Mm-hmm.
ask them the right questions to pick their brain, tell me the real purpose
Mm-hmm.
of why you're here to do this and what your brand stands for. Another way that I do that is I just do a brand avatar exercise, whether it's with the CEO or the team that works with them as well. And I just handpick
Mm-hmm.
questions. I guess over the years, I've learned what questions to ask to get those details out of them. But again, most CEOs and most teams already have a deep understanding of their audience. So we can use that to our advantage. And, it's half what your audience can relate to and half really your mission and your purpose and what your brand stands for.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen anyone in the industry, and this could be in any industry, that you have seen that maybe their tone of voice wasn't hitting, so to say, and maybe they changed it and now it's like flourishing? And have you seen any of that? Like, um, any kind of viral things? I know that, Gen Z definitely has been changing it up in terms of how they approach marketing. Is there anyone that sticks out to you?
Well, I think during my time at SilkFred is maybe that's a bit biased, but I noticed when we switched over to my copywriting and especially for emails, like revenue
Mm-hmm.
started increasing because people were getting more personality through that. And
Mm-hmm.
especially on our social media channels. Now, what was interesting is the way we spoke on Facebook was a little bit different than when we spoke on Instagram because we knew that
Mm-hmm.
audience was a little bit older on Facebook. However, people were commenting and reaching out to us saying, like, oh my gosh, who writes your captions? Not to toot my own horn here, but there was a whole shift in how we related with our audience because they could
Mm-hmm.
have fun reading that copy. It wasn't just an
Right.
boring fashion email. It was something that might make you laugh a little bit and might make, like one of the things I can think of is like a maxi dress that was perfect for when you haven't shaven your legs. I mean, we can all relate to
Hmm.
it, right? We have to shave your legs. So
Absolutely.
I think it's that idea of not being perfect and we really seem to do well with that. And that was something that I shifted during my time there and we definitely saw not only revenue but engagement rise because of that. If I have anyone
Hmm.
else that can come to mind, I think an obvious one is Ryanair. They came out with this super aggressive strategy a long time ago. Maybe a bit cliche to reference them, but they kind of, change things up in terms of how their copy looks and how unhinged that they,
Hmm.
so again,
Yeah.
that strategy doesn't work for everybody, but don't be
Hmm.
play with your copy and really make that personality shine through and your values as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
I
always
feel
tell like my team, it's we want people to experience what we're actually like on the page, like in on the website. So if we're like super formal, that's what our copy should be. But if we're fun, like chilled out, like relax. That's we want it to be fun, really figuring out like what that is because no matter where you go, it should be the same. Like whether it's like on Instagram or LinkedIn or your website, there has to be people need to connect the dots and go, that's the same company. Okay. But
hmm
the the messaging could be a little bit different. Like LinkedIn is going to be a little bit different than Instagram, right? So it's really hard to do. It sounds like it's easy, but it's very difficult to do to try to put yourself in the customer's, pants and like okay, what do they really want to know? Let's try to figure this out and it's a challenge.
It's a challenge,
hmm
and that's where AI doesn't always prove to be the best
hmm
in terms of writing that type of copy that actually resonates.
Yeah, right.
hmm No, I love that you mentioned, kind of diversifying the copy for Instagram to Facebook, because a lot of, sometimes you have to kind of explain that to your customers, like, well, we can't say the exact same messaging here that we are saying. It's a different demographic, and people engage differently. What would you say are some of the best platforms? Like we have seen like a resurgence of LinkedIn, obviously. I feel like it was just for people searching for jobs a few years ago, and now it's become this more of this like robust machine. What would you say are some of the platforms that you feel like people are really showing up on?
I mean, LinkedIn has got to be, one of them right now. And I've mentioned this before where I actually find LinkedIn so fascinating in terms of because I've been in the game and I've been able to see when it was founded and when it came on, on the scene.
Yeah,
Find the most fascinating about it is it really comes down to millennials originally were on LinkedIn as a Facebook, a professional Facebook, and then we really kind of
yeah.
grew up and we went into our career force, and all of a sudden LinkedIn became more important to us than Facebook did. Then you had Gen
hmm
Z come into the game, and that's where I think we saw that enormous shift in like, hey, LinkedIn actually is okay to be funny on it, is okay to post
hmm
almost Twitter like posts on there. And
A little cheeky.
yeah, I just find the evolution of LinkedIn fascinating. And I think there is a reason that on a tech aspect, they're always a few steps behind because they're planning on,
Mm,
like that, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Um,
Mhm.
right.
so I think to answer your question in the longest way possible, I think that the most important platform is going to come down to your audience, your objective, and your brand, right? So for an e-commerce brand who may sell fast moving, low cost jewelry, I might say head to TikTok. We know TikTok is the place to be for ecom. That's where I spend my most time as, a viewer of content. That's where I consume the most. That's where I search for things. I think that's something you need to
hmm
be aware of as a brand. Like social
Yeah.
media now is moving to search. So I don't think there's one answer on which platform is the most important one. I think find out which one is the most important one for you, and that's both as an
hmm
individual, as a CEO or an employee, and then also as the brand. And that's going to be circumstantial to each person. Meanwhile, finding the balance between not putting all of your eggs in one basket, because we've seen
Yep.
ChatGPT went down yesterday. TikTok has been shut down for 12 hours. We don't know if it's ever going to get
Yeah.
banned. So I do like to say that, of course, know your number one, but don't forget about your number two and your three.
Yeah.
hmm I was just about to ask you, how do you balance brand strategy with the fast moving platforms, but you kind of already answered that. So obviously we were kind of dancing around this whole thing of just showing up authentically on on these different platforms, whether it's TikTok or, you know, Instagram, like whatever platform it is, you should be showing up authentically. How do you kind of coach your clients to do that without coming across gimmicky or just trend chasing?
That's a great question. I think that comes down early on in the strategy when you're defining what your purpose of each platform is. I'm thinking of a
Hmm.
client that I'm currently working with, and one thing we were working on developing is for their strategy, what was going to be their main consistent content that was going out. And what we decided on was a podcast that could be video focused, that spoke
Hmm.
specifically about the topics that they really care about. I would say go back
Hmm.
kind of farther to the earlier steps. If you're a newer business, define your values and your mission, and that will lead to you showing up more authentically. Because when you're building your strategy, you're thinking, what's the purpose and what's going to be the consistent stuff that we talk about? What's the value that we're going to be bringing to people? It can't be just spitting out your product or spitting out your services. What are we bringing to the table in the world of the internet that is of real value for the people that we are selling to and that we care about?
Hmm.
So I think that strategy is actually what makes room for the authenticity because you have time now to react in real time and to post a meme that you thought is really funny. You know, some of my most viral content on LinkedIn hasn't been stuff that I've strategized, it's stuff that I've been able to do because I've strategized. So I think that
Hmm.
a long answer to your question, but if you can know your purpose and know the value that you're bringing to people, that will single-handedly allow you to show up authentically because you're talking about something you genuinely care about. And then it makes room
hmm.
for further authenticity because you can react in real time to things you really care about.
Hmm. Well, on the flip side of that, of trend chasing, what is a trend that you feel like you have seen that you do like?
I really like there's two trends that come to mind. I love the pretty little baby trend just because it's fun
Hmm.
and it goes along so well and it doesn't have one niche audience. It applies to all. And I really also love this is the purpose of life one, you know, which is a
Hmm.
reminder to all of us, especially in the LinkedIn world, that, you know, we're not working to live, we're not living to work, we're working to live and all of that kind of stuff. Um, but then there's been some other trends that have been quite good. I think what I love to see is when trends go viral and brands are able to react to them in a relevant way.
Yeah.
I think that's like a
Hmm.
trend within a trend. One comes to mind of a girl who sat in something awful on the subway and she shared her story and it went super, super viral. And that company responded and sent her a free pair of trousers to me.
Yeah.
The one, you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I
I've seen
haven't seen
that.
that one, but that I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah, that trend was so great within itself because that was a swipe one, right? And it was this one picture with this one music, and you knew that when that trend popped up, it was story time. And you know,
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I actually stopped and scrolled for stories. And I thought that was a really interesting trend because it was so unique and it was about storytelling and it was about stopping and reading the story, which we know in a social media world, it's got to be a good story to make
Hmm.
people stop and swipe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Two that I can think of are marketing propaganda or like the propaganda that I'm not buying into. Um, I've seen that a lot. I think it's interesting, especially like when people do like the adverse of that. So I think that one's has been a good one because it's another one of those trends that anybody could hop on, whether you're just an influencer or a brand or whatever. So I like that one. And then another one, which was just kind of crazy. I don't know if you saw like where that guy was he was doing this whole like morning routine with the water and yeah, okay, so you know what I'm talking about. And I just thought it was hilarious how all the different brands were just like, it was like their puppets or their mascots or whatever hopping on the trend. So I always thought that was funny because it's just like the juxtaposition of all of that. So
That was a great one, and I believe that was sponsored by Saratoga Water. So
I think so too.
yes,
Hmm.
so Saratoga did their job right because I can remember the branding. So totally agreed on that one.
I know. I'm sure their sales went through the roof on all of those wires.
For sure.
So you already said that your guilty pleasure scroll is possibly TikTok. Is there any other type of content that totally sucks you in?
Well, let's see. I mean, I am an Instagram girly at heart because I'm a millennial. That's where it all started. Um,
Hmm.
so I think TikTok is really the one that sucks me in. It's where I go to for my recipes big time. It's where I go to search for exercise tips as well. Like I had a back injury a few months ago that I turned to TikTok and got a ton of great inspiration for healing and getting better. So I'm not really sure. I YouTube, that would have to be it. I love a YouTube. I love a YouTube in the morning when I'm listening to podcasts. I love a YouTube when I
Hmm.
just want to learn something new. And I just think YouTube is one of the OGs when it comes to social media because it is not a social media
Hmm.
tool, but it is as well. It's like this
Hmm.
streaming platform. I think we're going to be seeing long form content become more and more important, even as short form terms to grow. So
Hmm.
say YouTube would come in a close second, and then Instagram, obviously, as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have had some extensive experience, as you have moved through your career. What would you say are some big oops moments that helped you grow, or that you were able to, just kind of learn from and take that with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my oops moments would be when I recently rebranded my entire website and figuring out how to redirect the domain. I'm not a tech specialist, so that was an oopsie moment where I have my old link out on, over 15 podcasts that
Mm,
I filled over the years. So that was my biggest oopsie was not being able to get that redirect up, right away. I
mm,
me to 72 hours before I was actually able to rectify the issue and get the redirect sorted. So that was an oopsie for me now. Another oopsie would be back in the day before actually right when 2FA was introduced, somebody hacked my Facebook and ran
mm,
paid ads on a brand account that I was working for.
mm,
They
mm-hmm,
they didn't spend too much and I didn't get in trouble for it. It was like not it wasn't my fault, but that was the first time I turned my 2FA on and I haven't turned it off since, and it's actually saved me a couple
mm-hmm,
times from some potential hackers. So I mean that's the number one thing that I tell people is, especially in Facebook, please turn your 2FA on. If you have other hands
mm-hmm,
that's running ads or working in Meta, you've got to have that 2FA on. This also applies to your password sharing, right? Do not share your password via email, via Slack. I don't care. Find LastPass or 1Password. So
mm-hmm,
that's an oopsie. Another oopsie, which is a small one in the pod of oopsies, but just sending an email at the wrong time with the wrong copy. I was sending an
mm,
A/B test, and the copy of the B test didn't match the copy of the A, so it threw the B test off, which ruined my
mm,
test. Um,
mm-hmm.
but it's those little mistakes that you really learn because I never made that mistake again to send
Yeah, you're not gonna do it again.
exactly wrong time, wrong copy. Horrifying for me, but I doubt anyone really noticed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we have the same oopsies that you do. It must be a marketing,
That's
you
an
know,
honor.
business situation.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, on the flip side of that, what is a project or a moment that you've had that was kind of like, yes, this is exactly what I need to do. I found like my bread and butter, like I'm gonna do this every time.
Well, I think an obvious one for me was when I introduced back in stock at SilkFred. So that was a theme that I had just kind of seen other brands do. And I thought, why don't we just test this out for an email? It did over 20,000
Hmm.
pounds in that one email alone. So that became an ongoing campaign for us. It also became a landing page. It became a whole thing on the website.
Hmm.
That was an obvious win. I think maybe a smaller one would be when I worked with Myova, which is a supplement brand for women struggling with PCOS. I did an audit for them. I was working closely with the CEO to take the strategy to the next level. And in that audit, I found some definite wins that we could apply, such as the coloring that worked on Instagram. She had done a rebrand, and I said, this coloring is working for you on social media. Let's put that into your email marketing templates. And that worked
Hmm.
immediately. We saw 200%
Hmm.
increase in revenue, 81% increase in conversions within those 6 months of just switching the colors and applying what was working in social to her email marketing
Hmm.
strategy. We obviously added in some PR and some collaborations as well. That's something I always encourage people to do is collaboration. So I think if I had to pick a number one answer to your question, it would have to
hmm.
be a digital marketing audit because that's where I find
Hmm.
all of my definite no's. Any hypotheses that I have, I'm going to back them up with data. And
Hmm.
the second being, oh, I just lost my train of thought. The first was the audit. The second, oh, it'll come back to me in a second.
No worries.
Marketing audits.
Well, I was going to ask, a lot of times we're always asking people, someone starting up a business, and there are a lot of businesses that are already started. And, that's when they are coming to an agency and they're like, I've been running my business for a while. Like, I'm just not necessarily seeing the results that I want to see. What I know we would probably start with an audit, but are there any other things that maybe you would tell um, kind of a business that has been in the game for a little bit, where to start at?
Well, I would first of all ask them as well as how are you managing things now? Are you using a task management system or what is your system to do that? And then
Mm-hmm.
I would
Mm-hmm.
also ask what's your budget in terms of paid? What have you tested? What have you tried so far
Mm-hmm.
that's worked? And then going back into the data and reanalyzing because a lot of times you haven't even reflected on what's worked. You're just so far. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to keep going. We got to keep changing things. When
Yep.
actually take a stop for a minute and look at what's working because chances are you are doing something right if you're still standing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't always mean you have to do a whole new strategy and a whole new, presence online and a whole new campaign. Let's stop and look and see what's working. Obviously, I would also say, have you been surveying your audience at all? Whether or not that's
Mm-hmm.
simply emailing them and saying, hey, to take this survey for a 10-pound Amazon voucher, or if you're just
Mm-hmm.
posting a story poll. Are you speaking to your audience? Are you asking them what they want? Are you asking them what they need? And then also coinciding that with any industry reports that are out there. Is there any
Mm-hmm.
data that shows you opportunities for where your business should be heading this year? We obviously know about AI. We know that's on the scene. We know that consumers are wanting responses within 24 hours. So look at that. Look
Mm-hmm.
at your automations. Where can you get your automations to act for you faster? And if that AI
Mm-hmm.
can't figure it, where can you bring your human contact in there to build the relationship? Um, so yeah, again, long-winded question to the answer, but that's what I would say.
No, I'm loving it. Um, we you just keep leading this conversation exactly where I'm going, so that's great. So, obviously AI is everywhere, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So, what would be kind of like your biggest advice for businesses that are trying to um, insert AI into their business or like use these different models? A lot of the time, we're telling people, yes, it is a tool, but I would say also lead with caution with that because it's not real. But I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there in terms of you should be using AI, you should be integrating it to everything that you can, but make sure that you're not chopping the bridge off for human connection. FAQs are a
Hmm.
big part of how people search and SEO. So you should be having your FAQs. And I feel like FAQs and ChatGPT go hand in hand. You know, you can use one to inform the other. But if your
Hmm.
audience, if your customer comes and they cannot solve their problem with AI, make sure you have an option to get in touch with a human. Because I think that's where us as a society, we're craving human connection. And once you cut that,
Hmm.
I know myself as well, personally, as a customer, once I can't even have the option to speak to a person, my patience goes out the door. I get frustrated. I feel like
Hmm.
I'm being treated like a number and not a person. So don't risk alienating your audience and still reach out leave a hand for them to reach out to if they need it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, did you have something to add, Michelle? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Um, if someone is on the fence about, working with a marketing consultant, what would you kind of say to give them that nudge to, subtly push them over the edge?
I'd say you really can't see the full view when you're the one inside of the house, right? So if you've
Mm,
built a business from the ground up, or even if you've purchased it and you're going on, it's it's
hmm.
always better to get somebody who's outside of that looking in. You get a fresh perspective, and you are so busy doing the work that you probably don't have time to stop back and look at it with unbiased eyes, right? So I think that's something, I just did an audit for a photographer last week, and she's running the business. She's raising two kids. She doesn't have time to stop and audit her digital marketing. And when we sat down,
Hmm.
and I broke down, here's your cost per visit. You're killing it with your paid ads right now. She was absolutely thrilled. And there were some things that we put forward that she can take into her strategy and do a little bit better. But for her, she even
Hmm.
added that it was super beneficial to hear what was working for her as well, because she just wasn't aware of that. I think a lot of us are just so busy running the business. And obviously, you got to prioritize the customer questions first. You don't have time to stop. Furthermore, if you have a team working on it, it's always helpful to get an outsider's view of somebody who's unbiased, fresh on the data. It's just always good to get a second pair of eyes of someone who may not be really inside of everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's hard to, for some reason, evaluate your own business. It's very easy for us as marketing people to look at another company and like, oh, you need to do this, this, and this. But when it comes to your own company, it's like, I don't know, should we? It's like
Hmm.
you question yourself when it comes to your own business.
Exactly.
Well, Grace, I would love if you could just tell everybody where they can find you on the internet and how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So my website is sgcmarketingco.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well, linkedin.com/grace-clemens. And all my social media channels are on that website, sgcmarketingco.com. So you can connect with me on Instagram, TikTok, all of them. I'm there.
All right.
Love it.
Great.
Well, I want to thank you again for being on today's episode. It's been great to talk to a like-minded individual, and to just get into all the things that is marketing. Um, and we will have all of your information down in the show notes so that people can click that and get in touch with you. And we will catch you guys on our next episode. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening with us today. Stay tuned for the latest in web marketing and design from ThrivePop. Want to be a pop star? Head over to thrivepop.com/podcast to join our mailing list for episode notifications, sneak peeks, listener feedback, and more.